Welcome to Tuesday's meeting of the Board of Supervisors. It's August 26th. We will do roll call first.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. We'll start with you.
Good morning again.
Supervisor Bohn?
Yep.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Here.
Supervisor Madrone is absent today, and Supervisor Wilson is walking in.
Okay, thank you. We're going to salute our flag, please. CAO Hayes, do we have any modifications today?
Good morning, Chair Bushnell. There's one modification. The public hearing, item H1, is being pulled from the agenda.
Is that the trellis? No, J Street, okay. Okay, we're going to go on to our consent calendar. Is there any comments from the board on the consent calendar today?
I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to echo the appreciation to Connie Sundberg for her 10 years of service on the first 5 Humboldt Commission. I'm trying to flip to it, but it's item 5 on our consent calendar. And then I also want to just voice appreciation to the City of Eureka for being our partner in provision of mobile crisis services, which is number 8. So, and I know we have someone here for that, but I don't believe it's going to be pulled. So just wanted to thank them.
Okay. Any Supervisor Bohn?
Yeah, number 19, I want to thank the Christine Jalmerberg Foundation. As you know, he was a longtime resident, passed away in 2000, but their foundation has been funding stuff in Humboldt County for 40 years. They were actually a big funder for Redwood Fields and many other things. And I want to thank the local people that are on their board and make these kind of things happen. That's a big number for the K-9 program, so they won't be coming to us. But it's a big deal. And so I want to thank them. We kind of forget the people that built Humboldt County, and he was one of them.
Thank you. So I also want to echo appreciation for Connie Sundberg. I was on first 5 at the time when I first got elected with her, and then I'm an alternate now. Don't attend anymore because Supervisor Arroyo goes to all those meetings. But we always are so thankful for the people in our communities that are willing to do those volunteer things to make our community better. And then also echoing Supervisor Bohn on the K-9 program, the funding for the K-9 program. And he is correct. Now they won't have to come for us for some extra money. And then not on the agenda, but I'm going to say it. Congratulations to the Sheriff's Department for Battle of the Badges for donating the most blood, which I think is just amazing. And my counsel's going to look at me crazy, but I really wanted to say that. So we'll go out to public comment on the consent calendar. We're going to go to Zoom first.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. I have no callers.
Okay, and we'll go into the room. Good morning, Kent.
Well, I get a jump on, I guess, third on the bandwagon on number 19 for these people and leaving money. So the nice thing about being rich is someday when you're gone, you can leave money for all these great causes. I guess you can do it while you're here. So maybe I had a person that said, do your, I think it was the wife's grandmother, do your giving while you're living so you're knowing where it's going. So for people who want to donate to different things, you know, some of these causes, there's all kinds of wonderful causes out there, such as the animal shelter and those kind of things. Participate, and there was one other thing. The Sheriff's Department's also getting some more cameras. I think that's number 20 in their jail facility. And in this day and age, it's unfortunate, but the more actual record we have of ongoing things, that minimizes our litigation, makes clarity, and people can't say certain things were done when they actually weren't done. So that's the world in which we live. So thank you for my chance to comment on your consent items today.
Okay. Anybody else in the room on the consent calendar for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for a motion, please.
I'll move approval of consent.
Second.
Nikki, that was Supervisor Wilson that seconded. And then we're going to use our remote devices today.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay. So items pulled from consent, do we have to have public comment on the public hearing or no? No, so we're just taking it off. Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to public comment on non-agenda items, and we will go to the Zoom first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no callers on Zoom.
Okay, and we're going to go to public comment in the room.
Good morning, and just to fill you in, I drove a borrowed car today because I'm helping a friend try and get services, and I need a car because I have to drive all over the place to complete the task. My name's Joanne McGarry, and I'm going to talk about 3 things: bombs bursting in air, locally and globally, and finally where some of those bombs are bursting in air. So last week, a lengthy discussion took place about dark skies, and I weighed in on that in terms of what I know and feel about how our communities can benefit by keeping our skies darker for our welfare, as well as the animals and plants in our community. So that brings me to the concept of fireworks, and we're less than a year away from 4th of July, but between now and then, there are other opportunities where people want to blow things up into the sky colorfully and bother dogs and war refugees and other people like me. And I just really think it's time for us to, in a climate changing world, in a future where the cost of entertainment for a few is at the expense of many, we should really look at a fireworks ordinance of some sort, because I really would love to see the day where the 4th of July is celebrated by darkness and the beauty of a night sky, as opposed to artificial explosions that are oftentimes created in very unsafe conditions, and they end up polluting the environment. So that's that for that, bombs bursting in air locally. And then globally, I am wearing a new Wear the Peace hoodie in honor and memory of 5 more journalists in Gaza killed by the bombs that our country is supporting to the state of Israel. Truth is really important to me, and these journalists on the ground in Gaza are telling the truth, and now they're being killed for that. So we need to do a resolution that says stop the bombs, and there's Block the Bomb Act by Representative Ramirez, and I would really like us to support her. She's an Illinois Congresswoman, and many others have signed on. I'm going to Huffman's office to get him to sign on. So that's my third thing, I guess, is basically Gaza is still something I need to speak about every day in front of people like you who have the power, because this is truth. We need to stop this.
Thank you. Morning, Thomas.
Good morning, Thomas Mulder here, speaking as myself. Happen to be up this way on business, so I'm gonna bounce all over the place. Gotta say, following that one, overregulation, it's tough. I mean, I don't know that our county has the money to fly around and work all hours of the night to regulate the county. I don't even know if we have the budget to regulate it during the day, but maybe there's big grant funding. I haven't been here for 6 months, so maybe there's billions of dollars in grant money that came here. I don't know, really haven't paid attention. Something that I think about, different industries that have been what some would say overregulated and squashed here in the community or county. It would be really nice to see regulations that support industries. It'd be really nice to see things support jobs, especially jobs where people can be outside. Not everyone likes to work inside all day long. That's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. Thank you again for postponing the Measure S tax till the end of the year. I personally have trying to follow the law for 8 years, whatever it's been. I have a piece of paper that this guy's supposed to pay me $313,000 by the September 20th or go to prison. I doubt it'll happen. I doubt that the follow through will be there, but I really hope, as someone that came forward is trying to follow the law, that things will actually happen. I would love to trade that to the county for my debt and future debt. I don't know if you guys would be willing to take it. Maybe the DA would push a little harder then. I don't know. We'll see. I'm here before you today to remind you there's many people that don't want to come forward and speak. There's many people that really enjoy working outside. And it'd be nice to see some resolutions that support, construction, timber, fishing, all those kind of things. Maybe I missed them. I mean, I see a lot of other type things come before you, but it'd be nice to see those type of industries. And then the last little bit, supporting cannabis really quick. It'd be nice to see a resolution or a letter where this board writes to the DCC and supports batch tagging, which I can't remember her name, for the head of DCC, promised us back in April of last year. Yet to see it. There's a lot of loosened regulations for the cannabis industry that was supposed to come forward that have not happened. It'd be nice to see a letter of support that. Nothing that would be harming the environment. Wasted plastic. I mean, you guys don't like waste. I mean, I can't even think about the amount of money it wasted too. I think I took 20,000 tags that got shredded up in 34 cents a tag every single year. Think about that math, the state waste. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Welcome again, Kent.
Yeah, one of my topics is I've been tracking the gerrymandering from the get-go. As soon as they said it happened, I kind of wanted to know why, and of course found out why. And then it came out in today's paper, which I found out probably a week ago, that our Senator Mike McGuire basically drew up a good share of the gerrymandering. And he says, it says he's not going to run, but this has been kind of common knowledge. And this is something that I call it Trumpian politics. It does bother me. I feel that if I look at things, I feel that we actually have probably in California and Humboldt County especially, probably 35% of the people were solid Democrats, 25% solid Republicans. They would vote party lines no matter what. And then you had 45% left over of the independents. Well, I personally believe that you're going to see that going where over 50% of the people will end up being independents if this continues to move forward. And our governor and Mike McGuire are throwing a really large thing into this, because if they fail at this particular thing, then they're perceived to be failures politically, and that's not a small thing for people who want to move up the ladder. So I'm tracking that quite a bit. My second topic is I'm closing this meeting in memory of Robert Sutherland. He who walks in the woods. When I first met him, he said, "That's not me anymore. I'm he who waddles in the woods." Robert was a friend of mine. We worked on HubMap together. I met him through that, funding their litigation there that they did, which unfortunately didn't have the actual effect that it should have, because there shouldn't have been generators after that lawsuit. But that's a whole nother story when you use an environmental lawyer instead of a contract lawyer to settle a contract. Robert founded Epic. He was very disheartened with the path Epic took regarding the weed business, and unfortunately the perception, and I follow it, was basically they were funded by the growers out there, and that's where their money was. So they really didn't bother to protect the environment like Robert would have seen it done. He stood fast with what he had, and he was always in favor of the small grower, the people who are back to earth people. Did wonderful work with some of the abuse from the timber companies, such as spraying insecticides and toxins in our environment. So I had an interesting thing. I found out after my parents passed, my birth name was Sutherland, and we came from Kansas. Robert came from Kansas, and Robert's dad was a Nobel Prize winner. And so I called up Robert and go, "Hey, bro," and I gave him basically his information exactly like that. And I had him going for a while, so he thought we were actually brothers. But somebody like this needs to be remembered. He fell to his death off a ladder working on his house. Sounded like Robert, 80-some years old. At least he got to go, where he was. So I'm closing in memory of Robert today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on non-agenda items? Hi, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Silbury. I'm here on behalf of my working class comrades in the Democratic Socialists of America, Humboldt chapter. We are extremely concerned about the county's continued use of Avelo Airlines, an airline that is fundamentally unwilling to commit to complying to court orders, is unwilling to commit to not shackling children, is unwilling to commit to not flying people to countries that the US State Department tells Americans do not go. When I was asked to go gather petitions, I thought, oh, I'll put up a boycott of LO sign and we'll get petitions. But yeah, it's a little bit harder to do. But what I found with every person I talked to, if I told them Avelo is taking money from ICE and the county is spending your taxpayer dollars on ICE, every one of them signed the petition. I never had a single refusal. Some of them were very profane in what they thought about ICE. Of the 50 people I personally was involved in signing, only 2 actually read the entire text of the petition. They were so enthusiastic about signing this petition. And the couple that did, they still signed the petition. This is a moral issue. This is an ethical issue. We are standing and sitting here today in a sanctuary city, in a sanctuary state. And let us not forget Measure K, where the voters of Humboldt County said, we do not want to be funding ICE. Now, I understand there's a legal argument to say that this is not funding ICE, but from a moral and ethical standpoint, we are approving of it. And you may think this doesn't matter, but an avalanche starts with a single pebble. And most avalanches are composed of pebbles. We are small, it is not a lot of money. But if we stand out, other people will follow. The city of Eureka was the first city to do a boycott of Avelo, and many cities followed. We can be part of the leading edge here. What we need to do is remember why we're here, that we serve the people. So I am urging you to not only not spend funds on Avelo, but to make a resolution to not spend funds on any corporation that takes ICE money, because ICE is coming. They are getting the people. They have the funds. They will be here.
Thank you. For people that just came into the room, we're on public comment on non-agenda items. If anybody has a public comment on non-agenda, this is your last shot at it.
I also have a...
You can hand it to our attorney. Okay, I'm going to close public comment on non-agenda items, and we're going to go to our first item, departmental reports. This comes to us from the County Administrative Office, and I'm going to let CAO Hayes introduce.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. As you may recall, back in April, your board made some fundamental changes to the use of trellis dollars, and accordingly, we needed to return to modify the Trellis Local Equity Program Manual. So today you have before you Nick Moyle and Peggy Murphy, who will present this item.
Okay, thank you. Morning, Peggy.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. Thank you, CEO Hayes. As CEO Hayes explained, on April 15th, 2025, your board approved removal of the majority of service items from Project Trellis, reducing it just to past due Measure S and property tax. In your board packet, you will see that as attachment 1. After that, we were given feedback that we potentially should have included plan and building fees. You will see that as attachment 2, alternative A. Then on June 24th, 2025, there was a board item brought before your board regarding Measure S taxes due and grant recipients. This item discussed the potential need to consider further service items. You will see that option as attachment 3, alternative B. Today, excuse me, catching my breath from running from parking. Took me a minute. So today, staff is recommending either attachment 1 or attachment 2. Staff is, while we are bringing forward attachment 3 as a conversation piece, we are not recommending use of that item just due to staff capacity issues when it comes to administering it under that. With that, we are looking to your board for feedback on which local equity program manual version you would like us to move forward with for administration of the next round of grant funding.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to public comment, but if there are any clarifying questions from the board first. Okay, Supervisor Bohn.
Is there outstanding grants still to be distributed?
From the current funding source, yes, there are, and we are currently working on those. Those fall under the prior local equity program manual because we were not going to switch mid grant
How
funding.
long are some of these grants been available? Because I know I'm getting phone calls from people that,
Can you answer that one?
Yeah, so these grants have been in the works for like a few months now. They've been, we've expended the funds for the 556 grant round, which is the 1.1 million. And then we are currently working on distributing the 571 remaining funds, which is, we've contracted with the people who had outstanding Measure S taxes, and that's about 7 participants, and we're currently contracting with the remaining 7 for that. It was about 500.
so we have nothing outstanding over 2-3 months old then?
We do in the sense that when we opened applications, we were able to vet a relatively large queue. Those applications had closed probably in January of the prior year.
Yeah.
And then we moved forward with finishing the $1 million allotment that we were provided. Then we moved into the next, which was the 571 round, the 600,000. We prioritized those Measure S funds due to the deadline for payment, after which your board made the decision to extend that anyway. However, that was our priority to ensure that those folks were not penalized. However, at that point, we had run into our administrative cap for that fiscal year, so the rest of those had to be processed in this fiscal year and are currently being processed. There is an ongoing queue of eligible participants for the next rounds of funding.
And with the mass quantity of people getting out of the business, are some of these people out of the business, but do they still get the grant if they're out of the business?
No, the state's intention for the funding is specifically for people to be able to remain in or enter into the legal cannabis market. We are checking with all people in the queue that they are still eligible prior to contracting.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go out to public comment. We're going to start with Zoom first. Nikki, is there anybody on Zoom?
No, Madam Chair, no
Okay,
comment.
we will start in the room. Come forward for your 3 minutes.
We won't need 3 minutes. It's just when we're giving out specific carrots, it's imperative whatever we can get to get the money that's owed us first. I think that's something that should happen in all circumstances, especially in this one. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Morning, Russ.
Morning, supervisors and staff. Ross Gordon on behalf of Humboldt County Growers Alliance. Really want to encourage the board to consider adoption of Alternative B today. So the status quo in Alternative A really limit the eligible uses of these equity funds to repaying county debts, Measure S property tax planning fees. Alternative B is the only alternative that allows these equity funds to be used for any type of business activity or other activities. So things like rent, compliance costs, capital improvements, et cetera. And I think it's really important that the county retain the option for equity recipients to be able to use funds for this purpose for a couple reasons. One is just thinking about what is the purpose of this program. The purpose of the equity funds from both the state and county level is to provide support to individuals who are impacted by the war on drugs. If the decision from the board is to limit the use of those funds only to repaying county debts, it's not really funds that are being distributed to people impacted by the war on drugs. It's funds being distributed to people in that category specifically who happen to have a debt to the county. There's no eligibility for many other items that people need those resources for to be successful in the market. I think a second thing worth highlighting is I know that there's a feeling among many farmers And I know there were a lot of folks who were hoping to comment today and maybe, expected the item to be a bit later. But I think there's a feeling that there's been a number of grant programs for the county for cannabis operators that have incentivized people who are not proactively in compliance. So I think the LJAGP Renewable Energy Water Storage Funds are another example of this. I think they're great funds. The state put conditions on it that it goes to water storage or renewable energy. A lot of people had already done those things proactively, right? These equity funds are an instance where the county has the ability, without state restrictions, to choose to make those funds eligible for farmers who are proactively in compliance. And the other alternatives, not alternative B, are essentially limiting the use of these funds exclusively to folks who are not currently in compliance in terms of tax payments or in terms of other fees. And so I think, hear a lot of concern that this is disincentivizing people who are proactively being compliant. In no way are we against an eligible use of funds being to repay these taxes or debts. There are a lot of farmers who are in difficult situations, truly are doing their best to stay current with Measure S and are unable to, so it's a great eligible use of the funds. But we have concern around this being the exclusive eligible use of the funds. The last thing I'd say is totally understand the concerns about staff resources, but I'd say this is a significant amount of money. It's $800,000 for this round. And, at this point, still expect these funds to continue to come from the state in perpetuity into the future, to provide resources potentially at a greater level in the future if the state budget picture changes over time. And so I think it's a worthwhile investment for the county, although I do appreciate the constraints on staff and appreciate all of staff's work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning. Walking in kind of cold or hot. I don't know what that means, but I missed Ross's comment, but I'm just going to shoot from the hip and kind of deliver what I wanted to from without knowing what he said. I understand the board's goal is to rebuild the county's coffers and keep that budget balanced as best they can. This money is coming from tax dollars that were generated from us, the cannabis community. And now we're going to take those funds and use taxes to pay taxes. And we've been saying that a lot in the cannabis business, that we're constantly using taxes to pay taxes, and we pay taxes on top of taxes. And more of us are falling away from the little bit of industry that we have left. So I have concern when I hear about using the money exclusively for back taxes. I think it's important to realize we need to support businesses that will continue to generate income, provide jobs, and keep the county moving forward, and even help open up new opportunities. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on modifications of the Project Trellis Local Equity Program Manual? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. I first am going to go to Peggy because I think there's some discrepancies in the amounts that are out there.
Correct. Just to clarify, the upcoming round, which we're referring to as CEG 658 in alignment with the state's numbering, is $657,437 minus a 10% administrative charge.
Okay, so just don't want anybody to hear the $800,000 mark and think that there's $800,000 out there when there's not. So, and then I'm going to go to Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. If you don't mind, Chair, I'd like to ask a question of Ross. I didn't get a chance to, so we got your email a little late in the day yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to give you a call. And I was curious, so Ross sent us an email, articulating in more detail some of what you just said. But I'm curious how, I am really interested in how we use this funding to address the impacts of the war on drugs, but I'm a little unclear at this stage in the life cycle of the cannabis industry how how funds could be used from your perspective in a more targeted way to address the impacts of the war on drugs. I mean, I see this as sort of helping people who have had this tax burden and cost burden of permitting some projects get a leg up and improve their capacity to spend money on other things, and it is less of a, I guess, an administrative challenge for the county in that way. So I'm sure you and I both understand that. But I'm curious what actions could people take instead?
Yeah, so I think the inception, of the program, I think this is what you're asking, was very much to provide support to businesses operating within the legal market, operated by people who have been impacted by the war on drugs. So I think obviously there's a whole range of services that could be targeted towards folks in that situation that are not business development services, but that's what these funds from the state have always been for, is to help people succeed in the legal market. So I do think that helping people with their Measure S debts could be a way to help people succeed in the legal market. The issue is you've got this whole, significant group of people who are up to date, have proactively been in compliance, who might want to be able to use these funds, let's say, for packaging for their product so that they can have their own packaging so that they can get into a dispensary as a branded product, or to be able to pay rent costs or lease costs, or to be able to do capital improvements on farm like a new drying shed. And all of these things are in Attachment B as sort of just general business support or business development services that I think from our perspective would be very helpful to eligible people in this program.
I guess what I'm getting at is it seems like it's been a lot of years where people have had a broader array of eligible activities available to them. Do you feel that there are people that are just now getting kind of those activities underway for their business? I mean, I'm sure everyone's different, but it just seems like the arc of this has been that there have been a lot of opportunities for people to do that with this funding in the past.
I think it's ongoing like any business. I mean, people are at different stages in their business and want to do various forms of business development. If they want to, for example, launch a new branded product, right? They've been working on their compliance, just having a license. Now they want to launch a branded product and get into the market. You have to buy packaging for that. That's expensive. Let's say you want to do a little bit more on farm to be able to process a better product. You want to build a new drying shed, for example. That's something that a business, depending on where they're at in their cycle, might need. So I think it's not all at once that people are making improvements. It's really ongoing and will continue to be ongoing.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Supervisor Wilson. I'm sorry, Craig, unless someone calls on you, we can't, because we already closed public comment.
Teeing off that's the question I had, which is what is our analysis on the eligibility around being impacted by the war on drugs? Like, in terms of an applicant, what does that look like? And is that just a narrative, or is there an actual threshold, or is there some qualifications about being negatively impacted by the war on drugs? Or is it just having been in the business of cannabis prior to legalization?
Originally, it was in the business prior to legalization. The state has changed that, and there is a requirement for having been negatively impacted by the war on drugs, either through arrest, citation, sometimes through sexual assault, things like these that may have happened. In certain circumstances, we do allow attestation because some of those are very tricky situations. We do ask for proof when it is available.
Okay, I appreciate that, because there is a basic construct that this wouldn't even be an industry had there not been a war on drugs, at least not in this space, and the investment in the infrastructure and the businesses that all occurred due to the elevated prices because of the war on drugs. It was double-edged, I guess you would say. So a lot of people wouldn't have had the opportunity to own land and all the other things that come with this had there not been this price structure that was created because of the legal status of the product. That being said, having growing up in this county, I know what those what those economic values are, but also the cultural and criminal negativities that have impacted families for generations, and that's real too. So I appreciate that. Can you give me, you guys did this analysis. I know you're trying to be as, without swaying the board one way or the other necessarily, but I guess adding these additional opportunities, I guess, well, for one, the way it's currently set up, is it required that the money be spent on these fees and taxes, or is it just prioritized?
As of the April 15, 2025 board meeting, it is required that it be put for Measure S and property tax past due.
Okay, and so what's being asked of us right now is to make a choice between staying in that lane, so where it's not just prioritized, it's actually required, versus expanding the eligibility of where the money gets spent. Can I ask you what you think that impact will be on your, from a budgetary standpoint in terms of your spending in order to manage and administrate this?
Sure, and that's really kind of the wall we're up against, is that staff would gladly do an expanded program, and we have for quite some time. When we started this program 5 years ago, we had a dedicated staff member solely functioning this program. We added then another staff member to support that. As time went on over those 5 years, staff have started taking on other projects, so we have no one dedicated staff member. So the issue we're really seeing in our office is it starts becoming a capacity issue. When we're talking about the two assigned staff members to it, they're also handling Headwaters, the EIFD, RMDZ, and a variety of other services and projects that we run out of our office. So it becomes a matter of not just funding, but also staff capacity and availability. And to be clear, we would love to continue doing larger service items. It's just that what that looks like is that instead of paying a past due fee and being done with that grant with that individual, we end up holding a contract with them and having to check in on receipts and making sure they're reporting and double checking that the money is spent accurately. We've had to deny multiple things. This was kind of what was brought up in that plan and building item in June, is concerns about how those receipts are tracked, things like that. We've been very careful to ensure that payments fall within the guidelines, use accurate receipts and reporting, and are within the term of the contract as required by the contract. However, that is a significant amount of staff time to go back and forth with participants and help them understand. It requires a significant amount of technical assistance.
So is there an estimate in terms of like between our choice A and B in terms of like the cost to the county to administer that same amount of grant funding? In terms of, do we have any sort of differential that we can estimate?
So A would be alternative A and alternative B. I don't have exactly that, but I will tell you it's a significant difference in the amount of time between processing Measure S, property tax, plan and building, and then monitoring all these service items.
Okay, I'm going to ask you from a different perspective. Are we talking about $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $100,000? Like, can you just have an order of magnitude in terms of like the scale?
It doubles, if not triples, the amount of staff time, but that is not necessarily available considering the other projects assigned to staff. So then it reduces their ability to function, things like the Headwaters Fund, EFID. So it's not just, we're not necessarily just talking about the cost, but the ability to keep other projects running effectively and efficiently as well.
There's the opportunity cost associated with that. I'm still kind of going back to just, I'll put the opportunity cost in one category. So in terms of just administering, have we estimated? I mean, we know the difference between the two because we operated it like option B before, and then we went to option A, and now we're being asked to consider option B again. Is really what's happening here, and so we've seen the difference between the two, and so I don't know. I'm kind of wondering about I'm just going into putting the benefits aside. I think there's a reasonable arguments being made about the benefits of option B, but I just really want to focus in on the cost for a second, because just like everyone says, well, if we do make a decision, it costs money for staff, and so do we have any, is it like a, do you think it's like a 0.25 full-time,
I mean,
FTP?
again, when we were running this in full capacity, it was 2 FTE. Running
2
it
FTE.
running in full capacity before we transferred and started adding folks.
Can I clarify, Supervisor Wilson, though, also the amount of money that you were giving out was much higher
Thank you.
and many more applicants?
That is absolutely true. We were at, 3.2 million.
Okay,
and,
so what's our scale now? 800,000, is it?
about 600,000, not including, of course, the Measure S.
So we're at 20%, I guess. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about less than half an FTP. Okay. And that has cost to it. And then it was mentioned that this program may continue on for years. Is that really the expectation?
At this time, we've received no information from the state that they will not be continuing this funding. We do anticipate them to come for site visits in a couple months, and we will be continuing to ask that question, but we have not received notice that it will not continue.
And is the core of that funding come from the cannabis excise tax, or where does that come from?
Honestly, it's switched a few times. Maybe Supervisor Bushnell can
It's
answer better.
DCC licensing and state taxation.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with county funds.
Correct.
Oh, not talking about county funds.
Yeah,
It comes from the state excise tax. Right. Okay, which we're supporting the reduction of currently. We have a policy to support the reduction of the state excise tax, yet we want to spend that money here in this county as much as possible. Okay, I appreciate that.
So I'm Supervisor Bohn, I'm going to go, and then Supervisor Bohn's going to go. I am very much in favor of option B, because I feel that folks that have not paid their Measure S and are delinquent on items are getting a benefit, and the people that have done everything right are not getting that benefit. But I understand the staff constraints, and I don't want to slow up the process. Would we be, I think we can, and I would like this board to consider that we do option A because of staff constraints, but we add that Project Trellis could pay state license fee. So folks that are current today and don't owe Measure S and don't owe planning and building are still having to be bogged down by their state license fee, and it's very difficult at times to pay that state license fee. And it can range, it's ranged by your size. And so just in thoughts with, getting that money out the door timely, which is going to be difficult if we add more to your plate. And I think that folks that are, current with everything, that would give them an opportunity to receive some of that funding as well. What are your thoughts on that, Peggy?
I think that's doable.
Okay, so, I do think that it opens an option to cultivators that have done all the work, paid all the fees, so then it would give them an option to say, hey, that's something that I'm getting rewarded because I have done paid everything, I'm up to date, I've done all my compliance. The other way, they feel left out, and they feel like they're being punished because they're current on everything, and it's very difficult, and I hear it continuously. So I would like this board to consider that we add to pay state license fees, to do option A, to be, kind of also sympathetic with staff time, and maybe that's something that can work. Supervisor Bohn is next, and then we'll go to Supervisor Arroyo.
We make all these decisions. Could I ask a question of Craig, if you don't mind? Craig, you and a few others have been a spokesman from day one. I've been to your farm. I know it's a small, family-owned. I live here. How many square feet?
It's 10,000, but
Yeah.
with the legacy footprint, it's like 8,000.
And this is the model we're looking for. What works best for you and the people that are like you, because I know you're in discussion with them all the time. I mean, instead of us deciding how the plumber should plumb, why don't we ask the plumber how we should plumb it, so.
Yeah, what Supervisor Bushnell said is really helpful. The state took this away from us. They were offering license vouchers, but they ran out of money. So that would be super, super helpful. And it seems like it would be easy to track. You get a voucher and you pay it and it's done. You don't have to track a project, go look at culverts or anything like that.
Great, thanks. I just wanted to hear it from somebody that does it. And the other aspect, everybody's tried to, and back in 2016, I went to the state and talked about what this looked like, legalization, talked in front of the assembly with 3 other counties, and fully remember, then we came back and we put a tax on it. Everybody put a tax. We taxed everything. We taxed, sales tax were through the roof. You see they're not through the roof. But I think we made somewhere in excess of $55 million in 3 years on the cannabis tax. And now we probably have 15, at the time, we estimated anywhere between 12,500 and 15,000 grows in Humboldt County, according to the sheriff, legal and illegal. We're down to 1,500, maybe 1,800, which is fine. There are still people making a living. Excessive, no, but balancing our budgets on their backs, because I think it's the only agricultural product we tax. And I'm not saying that offsets, you know, a lot of other things, and I'm not saying it shouldn't have been done, but it was done, and at the time they were fully in agreement because they wanted to be legalized. The big thing I heard from most of the growers back in 2014, 15 going into legalization, they were looking for peace of mind. They were looking, they didn't have to hide anything. They didn't have to do anything. They wanted to be businessmen. And some didn't. And it was a hard road to go. But I like the idea of the state licensing, because that's one of the complaints we hear. But I think input, back when we were getting 3.2 million and we had 2 full-time people on it, we were getting $320,000 for those 2 people, which should have pretty covered all their admin costs, their desk, phone, everything else. So in turn, I think, you know, the return has been coming and paying for itself, and those were all state funds, and still, we still get lots of phone calls. Why didn't I get my money? Some of them are well-deserved. Some of you didn't do the paperwork right. Duh. We're not giving it away, and there's checks and balances. So I like the idea of maybe a Measure A, Measure B combined. I'm not sure a lot what Supervisor Bushnell said. A lot of this, about 65% of this is in her district. I got a pretty good chunk in mine. And this is what I'm hearing from the legacy. By legacy, I mean the people that have been there since day one. We're looking at 2nd and 3rd generation guys now, so thanks.
Supervisor Arroyo, and then I'm going to maybe make a stab at a motion.
All right, thank you. Yeah, this has been a helpful discussion, and I'm especially on board with giving folks who have been up to the moment with their compliance with everything that the state and the county and everyone else has thrown at them, this additional opportunity. And I think for me, it just, I'm hesitant to say that folks who are significantly behind on those planning and building fees and other costs can do something else with it, whereas those who are up on it, I would be happy to see them apply and receive these funds and have other opportunities. So that's where I'm struggling right now. And I think it just comes across as this fairness issue. And I hear, from a lot of cultivators who reach out that they are, they are in compliance, or they're really close. They're maybe just a little behind, and that but that to me is a different circumstance than someone who has gone, that county, they're never really going to come. Not that anyone's really that flippant necessarily, but if folks think that we're never going to actually hold them to the expectations that we've set, that is frustrating. And it's also moving the target all the time. I mean, we've already, with this topic, I think it's good that we're revisiting it and having this conversation, and I think it just adds to this sense of uncertainty about what our expectations are. So I wonder if, in making the motion, there might be any interest in saying, I'm sorry? Yeah, okay, all right. It sounds like that might be incorporated, so I appreciate that, and thanks for letting me articulate that thought.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we go with alternative A, and that we add that state licensing be included as an application qualifier, but also that state licensing, if they are current on everything, that gives them a leg up, because I would like to reward those folks. And I know, so if you have an application for folks that have that haven't paid their Measure S or are behind on this or that, and you have an application for someone that needs a current state license paid and they're current on everything and their compliance agreement is done, that we look at that and really make that a qualifier for, I don't know how you're going to do that. Yeah, but I would like to reward folks that have really worked hard to be compliant, to pay their Measure S, to pay their planning and building fees. And it's difficult for them, state licensing fees come sometimes at a difficult time. And I see Peggy thinking.
Yeah, I think I just need a little clarification. Are you asking that we prioritize those
Yes.
that are? All right, so just to make sure we're all on the same page, the current process is first come, first serve, basically based on qualification. So we do have a queue in that order currently that would reorganize the queue based on prioritizing the current year due state licensing, not past due necessarily state licensing, but for those that are fully.
Well, if you can't be past due on your state license, because then you get suspended, and then you don't have a cultivation license.
Correct, and we have helped a few folks out of that situation, so I just want to clarify that we're talking about current year due.
Yes.
Okay, and prioritizing those to the top of the list.
Yes.
And then next would be the past due fees.
Yes, and so that application process is closed, correct?
Correct.
So then if they don't qualify for anything, then that, because they don't have anything past due, then I guess you would have to ask, on the first come, first served basis, have you paid your state license yet? Correct?
Correct, which might take some staff time because I'm not necessarily sure that is something we've collected in the application. So we will be going back to individuals on that.
I understand that, and I understand. I'm trying to not put a bunch of staff time on you, but I also don't think that it's fair, like I said earlier. And I think this is the minimum amount that we can make it equitable for folks that have really done that work and been current, and reward them. I am conscious of staff time. However, I think this is a way we can try to be more equitable.
Yes, I agree. One other point of clarification, if we have an individual that is past due on their Measure S, property tax, planning and building fees, and of course has the state licensing cost for this year and has the available funds for the grant cycle, because we do cap at $65,000, we're offering state licensing fees in addition to those past due coverage.
So the thing that I think you would have to use a little discretion, I haven't got a second on my motion yet, but if you are past due on your Measure S, we gave a time frame of December 31st. And so you're going to be suspended. So we wouldn't want to pay a state license if over a past due for a qualifier.
Correct.
Because then they won't have a county license that makes their state license inactive. So there is going to be a little bit of staff time there to figure that out. Apologize, but I'm still going to make an motion.
I'll second for the purpose of discussion. I do think we just need a little bit more clarification.
I'll
but I wanna keep
clarify,
this
but I'm
moving.
answering Peggy's questions.
Great.
Okay, so we have a first and a second, and Peggy, I'll clarify on the motion a little clearer so that the board can articulate. Supervisor Bohn.
And as we move this forward, and and do this. This is being run by our Economic Development Department, and this is economic development at its best. Do we get a full return on investment on everything that we do in economic development? No. That's why we budget it. And this is economic development. We've seen this at its highest. And now we're seeing it at its not so highest. So this is economic development, whether, and I always like the clarification I've got to tell to a lot of people. This is their tax money. We're giving them, this is a tax nobody else pays. The dairies, the timber companies, they pay a timber tax, they pay everything else, but it's a completely separate tax we're not taking it out of. So, I mean, this is part of economic development, so I appreciate that, your work you're doing on this, so.
Just as a clarification.
I'm sorry, I had a supervisor.
Okay, well, let's, can we hear what you think the motion is, and then we can move on from there?
Gladly.
I'm going to reiterate the motion that we go for option A, adding in state licensing, and that staff utilize the thought process of if you're not going to qualify for your state license, so staff discretion on state licensing with prioritizing state license.
Okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood the motion then. So I thought we were allowing applicants who are current on all their taxes and fees to use equity funds for other purposes.
It sounds like just state licensing.
It's just state licensing, which isn't as much, in my mind, as much of a reward to those who are current, although it removes that expense from folks. So I'm.
My reasoning is that I don't think, one of the biggest complaints I've heard in my district is how long it takes to get the funds out, and it's about staff time, and it's, I think, going to be very difficult to get those funds out timely, and we can, and this is no dig on economic development, it's just that it is what it is. To get those funds out in a timely manner and to monitor that. And state licensing is something you have to pay. There are no exceptions, and everybody has to pay it to have a current license. And so I feel like it, and so you have to have your state to have your county, you have to have your county to have your state. And, and so I feel like it rewards those folks without burdening our staff too much. And that's why I made that motion. I am a proponent of option B, or I like option B, but I don't think it's doable for staff.
Okay, fair. I'll continue my second.
Supervisor Wilson.
I agree with Supervisor Bohn in terms of, this is economic development, and for sure it has that component to it. On the spectrum of all the things that you guys do in terms of economic development, it's fairly targeted, but it's targeted to a pretty significant sector for us. And so, there's no reason why we wouldn't have some investment in that. But again, we have that investment external to this program in other ways in terms of promoting the county's economic growth. I just want to clarify though, what pays for this grant through the state? I guess you weren't very clear, but it's certainly not, it's not Measure S taxes that's paying for this. This is a state program.
Yeah, it's definitely through the Department of Cannabis Control. Originally started with BCC, then that was abolished.
And is it funded through fees from the cultivators, or is it funded through, an excise tax from the consumers?
No, I believe it is, as Supervisor Bushnell mentioned, the state licensing fees.
Okay, and so are we? Is our grant, what we're getting from that, proportional to what we put into it, or does the state? And I'm not, from your experience, I know you are not the state. You work for us, but I'm just saying, I'm wondering, is it proportional in any way?
That is a hard question to answer after they required the match.
Okay.
The match really limited how much we were able to go for. Additionally, as you see people drop out of the industry, the amount we're obviously contributing is going down, and we have not done those numbers as what that
Right.
looks like going to the
And so
state.
the match will favor those counties or jurisdictions that have more resources, for sure.
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification on that. I support the motion as it is. I don't think it's necessarily feasible, but I know you guys are first come, first serve in terms of prioritization, but then added on this other prioritizations with quite an algorithm you guys are going to have to go through to get to where you want to be. But from that, if there was a way to also prioritize those that are to get their fees paid, or the state fees, that are actually doing those on the ground functional, improvements, because that's really what we kind of cleaved out, right, in terms between A and B. But there's really good work in there, and that's been done already, some of it, I guess, or some of it to be done. I don't know, I just wish there was a way to instead of like prioritize them for these funds that are enumerated in A, and specifically the fees, so that you wouldn't necessarily have to do the administrative work of making sure that everything is like super perfect, but at the same time there's access to the funding that doesn't have a heavy administrative burden to it. I'll let you guys work that out. Because that's really the crux of the problem here, which is we want people to do these really good and innovative things for their farms. It's just that the administrative burden on us, as required by the state, is just really a lot. And okay, that's all I have. I support the motion as it is, and I'm hoping we can iterate to a better future every time we do this. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a first and a second, and our vote tabs are up. And thank you for staff. I know it's a lot, and I hope that you heard us, that we are very considerate of your time and not wanting to add more onto your plate. And I do think most everybody on this board, I think, wanted option B, but this is it's a go-between. So, Rex. Oh.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Thanks. So we're going to go on to another item, but I just wanted to just say that there is a missing person. If you go onto the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department, it is in Gibson Creek out in the Whitethorn area, so people should pay attention down in the southern Humboldt area for a lady that's missing down there. Yeah, we're going to do a 5-minute break, please. Supervisor Arroyo's coming right back. Go ahead and take a seat.
Am I sitting in this area?
Sure. Yeah.
So our next item comes from Human Resources, review of preliminary 2025 employee engagement survey results. And we're going to go to Director O'Hannon.
Good morning, board members. I'm just going to go ahead and pass it off to Jeremy Rosam. I'll have some comments later, but I want to let them just take the reins here.
Testing. All right. We do have a deck, so if Kaylee would project that. Thank you very much, Kaylee. Can you all hear me? I can't tell if this is working. Okay, awesome. And thank you, Zach. Good morning, Chair Bushnell and supervisors. This is a really exciting day. I actually love this, any opportunity I get to come and present and share data with your board. It's really exciting for me, and so today we get to really talk through how your workforce is feeling. I am Jeremy Clark, the Organization Development and Effectiveness Manager in Human Resources, here with Rosam Ruiz-Cortez, Administrative Analyst in Human Resources as well. Before we sort of dive into the results, I want to take a second and thank our department partners, because this would not have happened without the support of our department heads. This would not have happened without our staff. We will get into a little bit later exactly what the response rate looked like and how many folks took time out of their day to respond to this survey. But we, again, really want to acknowledge those folks for the time that they dedicated to this. So, oh, the clicker. Can you hand me that, please? Thank you, sir. All right, so we're just going to begin with some demographic information. So this is a little bit about the sample. As you can see here, the bulk of the respondents for this survey have served for between 1 and 20 years. We actually approach about 80% of the respondent base on that. And so we feel really good with that mix of respondents about to give your board an idea about how folks are feeling. Likewise, if you look at the age range, right, and we are actually a very diverse in terms of our age range. We have folks working in this agency all the way from the traditional list down to Gen Z. And so as you might expect, that some of the perspectives really spawn that range. And so here, it looks like the biggest chunk of our respondents is between 35 and 54, with the second group being that 18 to 34 group. Here's a little snapshot at the demographics. So you see 6% military service. I would note that when this is up 1% from when we ran this in 2023. We see the 15% of our respondents identified as being two-spirit, LGBTQIA+, 57% with the county tenure between 1 and 10 years. So these are folks that sort of span, early on in their careers to mid in their careers. 58% of the respondents were female, 68% non-supervisor employees. So this is really going to give us an idea about how conditions are on the ground, if you will. And then 24% of respondents identified as being minorities. So I will tell you that we set out, we had a goal of 1,150 responses. That was always an ambitious goal. We ended with 941 responses. We are very, very pleased with that. I will say that to my knowledge, to the director's knowledge, this is the most responded to county survey ever. So we will do that what we will. So we feel really good about our conclusions being grounded in data. This is a breakdown of really what department participation looks like, right? And so we had every department participate in this survey. So I really want to highlight that because that is critical and that is very noteworthy. Also, if you take a look, I want to recognize, while I actually appreciate every department for their dedication and participating in this, I really want to take a second to call out Sheriff Hansel and his team, Deputy Director Fuller and her team. You see the sheriff participation is approaching 13%. This is up more than double from when we did this just 2 years ago. We feel like that's a vital constituency organizationally, and so we welcome their participation in this. So again, thank you to all of our department partners. Continuing with some of the demographics, we ask folks how they primarily work. We see generally 2 to 1 folks are working in office, with the other third sort of being split between folks that work hybrid or completely remote. Again, these give us a good idea of what conditions are on the ground. So rather than leave the board in suspense and sort of let you keep you in limbo as far as what the verdict is, we're just going to sort of start with that. And so the survey results tell us that our staff is moderately engaged, and that but should be capitalized because this is a very, very huge but. And we will get into why in just a moment. And so I am going to pass it to my colleague, Rosam Ruiz-Cortez, and he will walk you through some of the findings in the data.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. That but goes to trends that require our attention, and they're going to come up in the following 7 slides. Each slide represents a domain. It's a general overview of what trends we see. And for your reference, the list of questions that make up each domain you'll see on the right. On the left-hand side, you can see a composite of employees' perception per domain. So that first, in green, you see favorable score. That favorable score is the average of all the agree and strongly agree responses to each question in every domain. Similarly, the unfavorable score is all the disagree and strongly disagreed responses. Lastly, neutral, as its name suggests, is just the average neutral, neither agree nor disagree responses. And job satisfaction and intent to stay, this is our highest rated domain, and it's really been driven by 71% of our workforce saying that they draw purpose and meaning out of their work. This is supported by the narrative feedback, which shows that we really have a workforce that is committed to public service. At the same time, though, the first trend emerges, one that requires our attention, and that is that from 2 years ago, the 2023 Employee Engagement Survey, intent to stay dropped 20 percentage points. So it went from 91% intending to stay to 71% intending to stay. This points to some attrition risks in other areas of the employee experience. For example, employees reported feeling undervalued, underappreciated, and not adequately recognized. Moving on to personal well-being and psychological safety, the data shows that there's a baseline or a foundation of psychological safety with over 63% of employees saying that they feel like they can bring their authentic selves to work. At the same time, there is an area for improvement where only 47% of employees agree that their workload allows for a healthy work-life balance. So that presents an opportunity for improvement on our side. And I should point out also that while you're looking at these favorable scores, for every domain, what a healthy, positive, favorable perception looks like, it's at least 70% or higher, really, is what we want to see. This career development also is moderately positive domain. Over 50% of employees feel like they are growing in their roles and have the support of their managers. However, there is low satisfaction with career development, personal career development, and coaching support. The data shows that employees feel that the leadership domain is a persistent challenge for them. Employees report feeling disconnected from leadership of the county and unable to see how their work contributes to the broader strategic goals of the county. We should also point out that there's a significant trust deficit, a concerning trend that has been consistent throughout our organizational data. This is another moderately, though inconsistent, domain. The strength comes from over 60% of the county feeling like over 60% of the workforce of the county feeling like leadership is promoting an inclusive and respectful work environment that leads to belongingness. While at the same time, we have opportunities to improve collaboration and perspective taking. Another complex profile where there's a mix of favorable and unfavorable perceptions from the workforce. While employees have access to essential information to do their jobs, they feel unsupported in broader systems. For example, there's a significant opportunity to optimize the use of technology to drive efficiency. And this is particularly important when we see that staffing levels are shrinking. This is also linked to another critical finding, which is that only 1/3 of the workforce believes that the county invests in resources that support their success. Now, compensation and benefits also remains a challenge. Employees report that their benefits don't meet their needs due to lack of access and high costs. They also report that compensation is inadequate and fails to keep up with the rising cost of living. Now, for this survey, for the first time, we've used what is called the Employee Net Promoter Score, which is the industry standard metric to measure job satisfaction or employee satisfaction and engagement. And it's really based on a very direct question, which is on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend the county of Humboldt as a great place to work? And based on people's responses, basically 1 to 6 would be detractors, and then passives or neutrals would be 7 to 8, and promoters are 9 to 10. And you really want to have promoters because detractors not only are dissatisfied employees, but they're likely to comment negatively on their work experience. Whereas promoters are highly satisfied employees, and they're sort of like your advocates who speak highly of their workplace. As you can see on screen, you subtract detractors from promoters, and that's how you get multiply that by 100, that's how you get your Net Promoter Score. In our case, our Net Promoter Score is in the negative, meaning detractors outnumber promoters. And in our case, that ratio is almost 4 to 1. As you can read on the screen, this implies that, or suggests rather, that we have that dissatisfied workforce, and there's potentially issues with organizational culture, management, or employee engagement. Now, this is the aggregate of all comments that employees made. As you may recall from the survey, there was ample opportunity for employees to provide narrative feedback. We turned this qualitative data into quantitative data, and these are the trends that emerge. You can do the reading yourself. I would only point out the first one, which shows that employees really are reaching, capacity is reaching really a critical level, and it requires attention to prevent burnout. If there's additional highlights that you would like to make, Jeremy?
Thanks, Rosam. I think the slide sort of speaks for itself, but I do want to take a second, if I may, and drill down on this capacity issue, because one thing that is critically clear in this is that our staff are reaching their limits in terms of capacity. Some of the narrative comments, and I'll say that I don't think that it would be violating the covenant that we have with staff when they trust us with their candid and narrative feedback, but there are comments, several comments of folks saying, my job used to be done by 3 people. We lose people, they don't get replaced. I'm having trouble functioning after work when I go home to my family because the requirements of the job are so much. And I understand that we are limited in terms of what we can do, primarily from a budgetary standpoint, but our obligation to staff is to sort of elevate these issues. Aside from that, one of the things that we noticed, and I'm not just reporting this because it happens to be an area that I lead, but it was clear that some of the things that we're doing on the development side, whether that be supervisor academies or some of our learning labs, are really resonating with folks, and they'd sort of like to see that expanded. And so they also feel like there's some opportunity for some leadership training at sort of the manager and executive level and higher. The compensation issues are really complex and quite honestly beyond the scope of my responsibility. But what I can say is that in addition to feeling sort of capacity limitations, work limitations, they're also feeling like staff are not really recognized for their efforts. And so we will get into, in the next slide, some strategies and initiatives that we feel like can help, can potentially move this number. So really, our overall recommendation is, again, understanding that we are financially limited. It is my recommendation to the director, to the CAO Hayes, and to the board that we really look at finding ways that where we can better support staff. Now, what does that look like, really? Well, let's try to optimize the employee experience, whatever that means. And that may look different in each department. But we might want to explore exactly what that looks like to see if we can deliver it. Work culture. Culture is notoriously difficult to sort of shift, but we might want to look at some ways that we can shift this work culture. Support staff well-being. There were a number of recommendations that we provide supportive services to staff. There were some that had mentioned that depending on where you work and which department or what your responsibility is, you may have access to counselors or EAP. Everyone has access to EAP, but even that is a little muddy. So there are some things that we'll do in the HR side to clarify that. But really looking at providing some supportive services to staff, and also leverage technology to the extent that we can to really drive that efficiency and cut down on staff's workload. And then, of course, another area outside my purview, but re-examine benefits. And I'm quite certain, I know that my colleague Amanda Phillips is committed absolutely to delivering the best benefits to staff that she can, and so I'm confident that some work will go in there. But these are really like our general recommendations, and this is not an exhaustive list, but again, I would put the emphasis on optimizing that employee experience. So here are really some key initiatives. Now, the good news is that some of these are already underway. Some are in various phases. The leadership training and skills development. So again, in human resources, we've done our part. We've had a supervisor academy that we've launched. We're now on our third cohort. We've had over 70 participants. This is a really, really highly rated learning intervention. So we're looking at expanding those. Probably our new and biggest recommendation at this phase would be that we really implement a values-based recognition program. And this is really driven by, if your board will indulge me for a moment, a clear finding in this survey was that our staff do not really understand how what they do every day contributes to the goal achievement of the county. So the goals of your boards. That is a gap that, in my view, I believe that we need to work to close. And I feel like if we can have a values-based recognition program that was driven by and connected to your board stated values, as indicated in the budget, that can go far to sort of address some of that. Also, this feeling of silos, it's been around for a while. Depending on which department you work in, you may not know what other departments do. Our colleagues at Hum 21, to their credit, they have been trying to get at this using department tours and providing spaces for departments to sort of share what they do and what some of their responsibilities are. And we have this initiative called One Humboldt that we are in the process of developing. And I'm not going to get into the weeds right now, but I just want to let your board know that we're really excited about that. Also, department head roundtables. I often forget that it's not very common for a staff to have access or have the opportunity to work with and learn from county department heads and be able to pick their brains on what they did to achieve the levels that they have in their careers. And so actually we've re-implemented department head roundtables in our supervisor academy for this cohort, but one of the things that we would really like to do is hold these more frequently, maybe monthly, open to anyone so staff can come and engage other department heads. And then also our workplace connection groups. Now, with our affinity groups, we had done a really good job of structuring groups around protected classes. But now we feel like it's time to really broaden that. Our hope is that we see folks that are interested in a myriad of things. Maybe it's public speaking, maybe it's an analyst work group, maybe it's aspiring executives. Whatever the issue is, it's an opportunity to bring like-minded folks together. So certainly we can establish a feedback loop with them on the human resources side, but so they can build community and knock down those silos. And again, really focusing on wellness. And so one of the things that we plan on doing in OD and E is really allocating our learning corners to things to support staff in wellness and stress management, et cetera. So those are some areas where we feel like we can have a direct contribution. There are other areas, these are the really big sort of heavy things where it might be best for OD&E to really just contribute. And those are the things like culture, the compensation benefits, the mode of work, whether folks are, work in the office, hybrid or remote, flexible schedules. There were quite a few calls for a 4-day work week, a 32-hour work week, a 36-hour work week, remote Fridays being mandatory for all departments if you're closed. And so those are obviously things that we don't control, but to the extent that we can support those, we're happy to do that. And then continuing the inclusion, and I would point out that our inclusion numbers have increased. And so the work that we have done around trying to create an inclusive workplace the last couple of years is resonating and is working. So I do want to point that out. So to just summarize all of this, any of these areas where we can support, we enjoy a wonderful relationship with CAO Hayes. Obviously, we work for Director O'Hannon, and so we are happy to support these in any way that we can. So. Can we go to the next one? That is it. So we thank you certainly for your time. I'm going to pass it back over to Zach so he can make any closing comments he has.
Thank you, Jeremy and Rosam. I wanted to make my comments last because I really wanted to highlight that Jeremy and Rosam did a lot of work on this. This is a classic don't kill the messenger situation. We need to bring this information to you, and some of it might be a little shocking or uncomfortable to hear this information. But we think it's important for you all to hear this and know this and have it in your minds when you're making decisions about various things. So I want to make a comment about that, and then just kind of reiterate that it's pretty remarkable the amount of participation we got in this. We were shooting higher than what we got, but even what we got was really great, and just a lot of credit to all of our departments for encouraging staff to participate, because this is really, really valuable information that, I know one of the things that staff think about when these things happen is then what happens with this, right? And so that's why we felt it really necessary to bring this information to you. You're the leaders of this organization, so you can hear this information, and then we will continue to do the work we're doing and take any direction that you can give us or any thoughts that you have to, continue to try to move the needle in these areas.
Thank you. Could you email the board that survey or that slide deck?
Sure, of course.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go out to public comment, and we'll go to public comment on Zoom.
There is none, Chair.
Go to public comment in the room.
I find this presentation very interesting, if not somewhat disturbing. I do trust the numbers you're getting there, but when your leadership scores get that kind of a low score and you're trending the way it's going, information like this, it's always hard to say what is the norm. In other words, if we could give this same survey to the City of Eureka employees, City of Arcata, City of Fortuna, see what they say, it would be a wonderful thing to see exactly what the difference is as far as that goes. That enables us to learn. There are other counties that have similar county sizes. It's the same thing when in school they had a national testing thing and everybody was tested the same thing for things, and that's how you learn and compare. Now, or would this be given to Cal Poly Humboldt, or was this given to Open Door, so that we can actually see how far in the hole we are? And we are in leadership, we're way in the hole. And that's something that needs to be fixed instantly. It didn't surprise me. A majority of your people came from DHHS, and the people I've talked to do feel that they have leadership problems in that department. So you are slanted that way. The other information I'd like to see would be, you had two main responders, the sheriff and DHHS, and I'd like to see the stats on each of those. I would assume you did, to see what the satisfaction levels are. You find the areas that are managed very well, ones that aren't managed as well, and then you try and use and learn from the good managers' techniques and not do what the poor managers are doing. So I think that's well within your ability to do. I mean, if you were in a large company, you know, running a large corporation, this is exactly what you'd be doing. And then you'd be implementing, doing changes, following through with this. And it is disturbing to see our leadership being rated so lowly. When you look at the stats there, you just about look at, well, are the positive stats leadership happy with the leadership that they're doing? And so I also have to slant that a little bit. So highly recommend that you take this seriously and make this an ongoing study and topic brought back to you as frequently as you're financially able to get this information back to you, so you can see the trends, see where you're going. If you continue going down, then you have to make changes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this item? You want to make public comment?
Not public, I just wanted to add something.
I'm going to finish public comment and then we'll come back to you. So seeing none, I will be closing public comment, and Jeremy, go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to add that we've furnished CAO Hayes with the response rate by department, so she has that information. And then I would be remiss, sorry, I recognized the sheriff earlier, and I did want to say, because she's in the room, Michelle, we appreciate her support as well, because she was a big supporter of this in her department. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledge that.
Okay. So now I'm going to come back to the board for comments on this item. Supervisor Arroyo.
Well, I really appreciate this, and I would love to get a copy of the presentation. It's really helpful to kind of synthesize all the data, and of course I'm disappointed to hear particularly, you know, some of the information around people's willingness to say this is a great place to work, and but I'm glad that some of the things around leadership training opportunities are helping, and we know this has been a tough time for county employees. We're all tightening our belts, and you know, it's a resource scarce time, and I can't imagine that that's I'll say it's certainly not an uplifting feeling for me, but there's this sense of public service being meaningful that I have, and I want to work with you to see how we can convey that to our employees, and really kind of make that connection between the big picture decisions we're making and then the work that they're carrying out. So thank you for that, and I'm really interested to hear what your ideas are on how to communicate that better, and what that might look like. So thank you. I think it's really useful information, and I think even shining a light on culture is where you start to get a sense of, you know, buy-in from folks, even if it starts kind of in a less favorable place. And I'd rather be shining a light on the things that we need to be improving than, you know, than turning off the lights. So it's much better to understand it. So thank you very much for your work, and this is, you know, great engagement from employees. So that's really good.
Supervisor Wilson.
Thanks, notwithstanding all of the other stuff here, but teeing off of the light. Was there much engagement on the physical workspace environment, and can you elaborate on what some of that kind of feedback was? Because, you know, as you know, so much of the workspace where people are is pretty old, and we've been, you know, getting through remodels here and there, but there are some structures and facilities that are, you know, beyond their lifespan, and so I'm just kind of wondering, are we seeing differentials between where we've made those changes and where those changes maybe we haven't gotten to or have challenges?
I can take that. So we have not cross-tabbed that out as far as looking at relationships between, you know, facility remodels and sort of how folks feel. So I don't know what facilities have been, you know, recently remodeled, but we're happy to investigate that. What I can say is, to your point, Supervisor Wilson, facilities did feature quite prominently as well. There were a lot of comments around just essentially the age of facilities, So that is definitely something the board should be aware of. And then, but really, a lot of the commentary in terms of workspace were really around mode of work, which would be, folks working remotely, having that as an option.
And can you elaborate a little bit on that in terms of like the trend? Because I think when I was reading the staff report, it talked about one of the ideas or one of the things that employees were looking for is more connectivity. But I find it's interesting because then at the same time they want more freedom to work remotely. And so it's just an interesting contradiction and what's sort of like the current, I don't know, science on that and that we see.
Yeah, so sort of overall it's mixed, right? There is this movement of, CEOs pulling folks back into the office to work more traditionally. But even in those, from a lot of the things that I've read, you've seen organizations allow for remote Fridays, or maybe it's a 3-2 thing. I think, because a lot of this policy is largely driven around department head preferences, that depending on which department you work in, there could be a huge variance. We have a pretty good remote culture in human resources, but other departments may not. And so that could be really impacting those. I can tell you that in the data, what we saw was we saw the whole range. So we saw comments where folks are like, bring everybody back in the office 5 days a week. Remote folks are not really working. To folks saying, no, absolutely not. If you are going to require me to perform roles that used to be performed by multiple people, if you're going to undercompensate me, if you're going to work me to the point of burnout, at least allow me to work remotely on some days, because that just makes me feel better. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Rossam, as well, because you're intimately aware of this.
Yeah, in full disclosure, the numbers of, can you hear me? The people in favor of different modalities of work outnumber at least 10, if not like 22 to 1, the people who favored traditional methods or modes of work. And just to add to what Jeremy was saying, people also said that it saves them time and it saves them resources, particularly when they feel like they're getting undercompensated. It feels like they spend less money on gas, wear and tear on their cars, and so on and so forth, in regards to modes of work.
Just a lot of words, Supervisor, to say it's mixed, really.
Through the chair, I can add, I've not just this study, but just read a lot about this as the changes have happened in the world during the COVID era. And I think what's become clear is that going one way or the other completely is not really the answer. It's really, we need to find that kind of sweet spot. And to Jeremy's point of, it's going to be based on operations, it's going to be based on need, and all those things should be considered. And it can be harder to supervise employees when they're remote working, and it's not for everyone, right? But I think even folks that we've worked with internally here, not calling anyone out specifically, have sort of continually sort of shifted towards the middle on that idea that it doesn't have to be all one way or the other, and we would really prefer it not to be all one way or the other for those exact reasons of being able to connect more, but also providing that work-life balance. I think for the most part, and this is more anecdotal, but when we've seen those numbers of folks that do remote work in that hybrid fashion, again, those departments that maybe were on one way or the other have slowly shifted towards the middle on it and found that sweet spot that it's meeting kind of everyone's needs.
Supervisor Bohn.
Well, you guys, and there's been a multitude of hours for this, I'm sure. Anything else? Just yesterday, checking around 5 or 6 of our neighboring counties, we rate higher than our neighboring counties in employee satisfaction. At 54%, we rate higher than our neighboring counties: Butte, Mendocino, Shasta. I mean, the ones that are somewhat our size and everything else. So I'm wondering if you could follow along those trends. Is we got a 40% response rate, which excites you. I'd like to see an 80% response rate because we're not making people do this on their own time. They're getting to do this on we're not taking time out of their life schedules or anything like that.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying, for me to satisfy, and then the other thing, I'd like to see what it was in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I'd like to see the progressions of where we're going pre-COVID, after COVID, because this idea, I talked to some department heads, and I mean, one was very adamant saying that they were at 70% efficiency rate with people working from home. And the sad thing is, when somebody goes to work for the government, they like it because it's steady, and hopefully it's steady. It's got great benefits, it's got everything else. But it is a job that provides for the public. So in turn, we have to look at what the public's needs are as, with our employees and work with them on trying to find a sweet spot. I grew up in the old ages. I never had a sweet spot. I just kept working until it was done. And I know those things are changed, and I'm fully aware of that. But with that being said, I'd like to see some comparison with some other counties to make sure, are we really 0-12, or are we in the middle of the pack? Or are we, I'd like to see where we're coming from. Or it's just the way the conceptual thinking is with a lot of different employees. I started pulling up private employees, and I tried to stay away from the 20% top 20 and it's funny how many people, and if you know this probably as well as anybody, the more a person makes, the more unsatisfied they are with their job, which was but that's well critiqued. So I'd just like to see what our neighboring counties, because I mean, none of the neighboring counties are in the 50 percentile. One of them is actually down to 38.5, and it's not Shasta. So it's just numbers. If we're going to throw numbers out there,
Yeah.
I don't think everybody should sit here and go, man, I'm really troubled. I'm really, we're not, we do, we engage with our employees. I think we try to do everything we can, but we are just as limited as we heard earlier as economic development and everything else, both by manpower and by finances. So to say I don't think there's a member of this board that doesn't try to do everything they can for their employees. It makes life a lot easier when you park next to them. So
I agree. As to the surrounding counties, we'll certainly take a look at their and see any engagement survey data that we can find. What we did do is we consulted national surveys of public sector surveys to really look. I would say, for basis of comparison, the most recent comparison we have is we ran a very similar survey 2 years ago. So that was post-pandemic. And as Rosam noted, intent to stay, which is our strongest area, was down 20 points. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. We're not gonna, it's too early to sort of postulate as to why that might be, but it is certainly something that we want to keep track of. And so one of the things that we're doing in HR is we're going to introduce some turnover reporting. We've worked with IT to secure some pretty accurate turnover reporting. So we're going to keep an eye both in aggregate and at department level so we can see who we're losing and why. There also, HR, we also conduct exit surveys. And so we connected with our colleague Beth Rogers to sort of explore that. And it really tracks. I mean, it's compensation. There are issues with leadership. And so all of these different data streams that we have, whether it's the DEI survey, whether it's engagement surveys, whether it's the grand jury report, like, to be honest, I mean, the grand jury report recommended new facilities. That featured prominently in our data. And so these are definitely areas that we are going to want to pay attention to. Now, to your point of comparing and 50s not being bad, I mean, my position is, like Rosam said, we would want these numbers ideally to be in the 70s, particularly when what is keeping folks here is the dedication and commitment to the mission. It's that public service.
And I want you to say, I did not say 50s were good.
Sure.
I never clarified 50s because we were 70. Like you said, we've dropped 20 points in 2 years. And if you'll see the big correlation was that 2.5, 3 years ago, we gave probably the largest raise in county history.
I agree.
We gave a huge compensation, And we were very unsure because of our financial management at the time if we could do it. But we were committed to our employees to try to make something different because they'd been loyal to us. Now things have changed, the board has changed, a lot of things have changed. So I understand, but the thing is it's kind of like, what do they say? Well, there's a lot of things you could say, but I'm just saying, right afterwards, we gave a very good compensation package, and they were happy with us. Right now, that's not available to us to do that, and to that extent, you know. So in turn, you know, I can see where it would make me upset. I can see where that comes from, but dropping 20, I don't think 20 points. I think the elephant in the room is that. And you just said it, compensation. So,
Compensation and benefits.
So the dissatisfaction or not wanting to recommend, the county as an employment, right now where we are, having to do more with less, and we're at a 10% hiring freeze, and our budget years, we don't know what that's going to look like. We've been saying that for like 3 years. I don't know why anybody would want to recommend, come to the county, maybe see if you get laid off next year. So I think that has to also come into play with the dissatisfaction with willing to recommend people work at the county. I do think that also plays into, do more with less, and that was the idea of closing departments on Fridays if we could. But it has been for a year and a half kind of a somber message that we're in budget crisis, and we had a status quo budget this year, and so that is not a comfortable feeling for anyone. And I'm not surprised that the survey reflects that. It honestly, if it didn't, I would be surprised. And just my thoughts around that. Also, I see, I was looking at the numbers, the BOS, one person did the survey in the BOS, I did the survey. So that's kind of, we should do what we ask folks to do as well. So, and I see, some of them did, although DHHS and the Sheriff's Department, they have the biggest work staff, there were departments that did, 100%. And so just really want to thank the organization and the departments for that. Public Works, I'm not surprised that they're the lowest. They're out in the field almost every day and don't have accessibility to computer and are tired at night. And so I was not surprised to see that was 21%, given their work. I could say the same of the sheriff, though. They're also out in the field, but, maybe have more accessibility to their computer or whatever. So I want to thank HR for this. It was very interesting. And I did, thank you for letting us know that Alicia had the breakdown. That's interesting as well. And so I guess I would look for a motion to receive and file unless there's any other comments.
So moved. Thank you again.
Second, I just want to speak to the overall trend. So I just found it interesting, just a quick review of, local government public worker satisfaction trends. It's just basically overall satisfaction is nationally remaining relatively high due to stability of public service, like you were talking about, but with significant concerns about low compensation, lack of recognition, and the strain of increased workloads from recent staff departures. So I do want to speak to just for a second to the lack of recognition and push back on, at the beginning of this year, there was at the federal level a real concerted effort to demonize public workers with this whole construct of fraud, waste, and abuse, and the way that they used those terms and personalized it against the workforce very specifically. And that has a trickle-down effect in terms of the culture and what, the messaging. And I think, public service and specifically local public service are, in my mind, heroes. When things really fall apart, these are the folks that hold it together, just really hold it together. And so we do have to, in addition to all of these other things, I do think we do have to do constant reminders, both as a leadership perspective, and also from our community's perspective, to remind ourselves and remind our workforce that they are appreciated and valued, because holding civil society together is a constant and hard job to do, and I think that appreciation needs to, we need to do a better job amongst all the other things. But I'm just saying, there was just a messaging campaign that came across the airwaves some months ago, which I think is not helpful in making or helping our workforce feel valued. And I want our workforce, as well as all public workers, to understand that they are valued, and we do need them. I've mentioned to folks before, I traveled in the former Soviet republics the year after the wall fell. I saw what no government looks like, and I saw what happens under those situations, and the strain and the stress that goes all across the whole society. And we do not want to see that happen here by any stretch of the imagination. And so, again, my heartfelt thank you to our workforce, and my commitment to, I think our commitment, I do not question the commitment of anyone on this board to work to try and have our workforce be valued to the degree that we can do. So I appreciate that. Thanks. That's my second.
Supervisor Bohn? Okay. Our vote buttons are up.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is everybody okay? Anybody on the board need a break? Oh, yeah. So, okay. So we're going to go on to our next item, which comes to us from Planning and Building Department. And this is a resolution to withdraw and resign from the County of Humboldt from the California Cannabis Authority Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement. And Director, I was going to promote you to Supervisor. Director Ford will be presenting.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. Good morning. Good morning, Supervisors. This is a request to discontinue, as was mentioned, from the California Cannabis Authority. The primary reason for this is that the CCA, as it's known by, really has not continued to provide meaningful information either to the Treasurer Tax Collector or the Planning and Building Department. The annual membership cost is $28,000. It was formed as an agreement between California counties through the California State County Association of Counties. And at first it held a lot of promise because it really wanted to tackle the idea of banking for cannabis, enforcement for cannabis, and working together between many counties. The struggle is that a lot of the critical mass that was there initially has dropped away. I don't know how many counties are still there. I think last time I heard there was 3, Humboldt County being one of them. But so we're bringing this forward to you. We still have a member sitting on the board, that's Supervisor Bohn, and continuing to participate in those discussions. But the question being asked is it worth the membership fee to continue to be part of it? And then if it's not, we would ask you to adopt a resolution allowing either the chair or myself to sign a letter withdrawing from the joint powers agreement.
Okay. I'm going to go to, I'm going to give Supervisor Bohn as the appointed seat an opportunity, and then we're going to go to public comment.
Yeah, things in the market, things have changed dramatically, and I appreciate everything they did. It really helped having all that data 5 years ago, 6 years ago, but the data has dropped off as I guess the size of the membership drops. And I missed the last meeting, but at $28,000 a year and what we're dealing with, I don't see an issue. Again, it's a CSAC driven organization, and they've tried really hard. They brought in too much of the money was being eaten up in salaries, which I understand it costs money to run programs and along the lines. But I think us sitting here in the middle of what one would call ground central, I think we get a lot of our answers just as we did today, talking to the people that are actually in the business. So I can tell you right now, I turn to Ross a lot more than I turn to them for answers, because I really need to know what's happening in Humboldt County. I mean, it's important what's happening in the state because it affects the overall, but I need to know what's happening. And Craig's a great resource. There's a lot of good resources out there, so I think we can do fine without it. 28,000, what do they call that? What does somebody call that? Budget dust? It's, you know, in the overall things, we could go out and look around and save that, no problem. But the issue is we're not getting the ROI on it. And I like the people that are on there and everything else, and I think they've got I think they have a good idea. But Amy was on there with me. Amy's not getting what she needs, and John's not getting what he needs. So the whole idea was to try to help them deliver their deliverables along this line, and it's not happening. So I don't have a problem with it. I think the people that are doing it are just hamstrung because of both finances and the decrease in the growth of the business.
Okay, we're going to go to public comment, and we'll go to the Zoom first.
There is none, Chair.
Okay, we'll go to public comment in the room.
Strongly support you taking this action. It's kind of like people on their phones, they have all these apps, and they say there's apps that'll get rid of these. Are there any other things out there like this that we can start looking for, that we can go after saving, and strongly support making that happen as soon as we can, because it's sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you. Hi again.
Morning, Craig Johnson. I support withdrawing as well, and maybe using those funds towards the earlier agenda item to help keep those monies flowing. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and come back to the board for comments. Supervisor Wilson.
I'm happy to make a motion, if that's all right. It's all right. Let's see. I move that we adopt Resolution 25-994. I think that is the number. Do I have that correct? Director
Believe
Ford.
the resolution number has been assigned yet.
Okay, so the attached resolution. I'll
Yes.
just keep it that, and I authorize the Director of Planning and Building to sign a letter to withdraw, and resign, to send to CCA via USPS mail and email.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Kaylee, did you get all that?
Yes. Motion carries 4-0.
I didn't vote, so how could, I didn't see it come up.
It said you voted. Do you want me to redo it?
Nope, it's fine. I would be a yes. Okay. Thank you, Director Ford. Okay, so that completes all of our items on the open agenda for today. And we're going to go to, let me get back down to this, to closed session. And we'll go to County Council.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. It is the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Sections 54954.5 and 54957 in order to consider the public employee performance evaluations for the positions of the Agricultural Commissioner, Public Defender, and County Administrative Officer.
Okay, we will go to public comment on closed session. Is there any public comment on Zoom?
There's not, Chair.
Okay, public comment in the room.
For starters, it's been requested of me by some people that you do it in the room first and Zoom later because of your time lag. Just thought I'd relay that at this time. Might make sense. These same evaluations have been on here so many times that there's a public perception out there that possibly it's not just an evaluation that's being done. I mean, why would it take 5 or 6 meetings of the same thing. You may wish to check with your legal counsel, make sure you're staying within constraints. Maybe there's some other category that this would be put in as far as communicating is being done in closed session. Hate to have you found to be in violation of something that circumstantial evidence says may be actually happening. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and have a good Labor Day weekend, and everybody enjoy parades and picnics and family.
Thank you. I would just like to clarify that our board was going back and forth. It had nothing to do with county council, why it's been on the agenda so many times. So we will take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break.
I need to make an important medical phone call. Can we take at least 15 minutes?
We'll take a 15-minute break,
Thanks.
and then I anticipate that this will be 1 to 2 hours, and we will be in recess. So 15 minutes, and then we will go into closed session. Our 2 hours turned into a little bit more, and we're back out of closed session, and we'll go to county council.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. There was no reportable action taken with regards to items K1 through K3.
All of that, and we did nothing. We're adjourned. Tuesday. Same thing.